Hi, this is J.R. Robinson, and you are watching the Break It Down Show live.
Man, to have J.R. Robinson on as a repeat guest is a huge honor for myself and for Pete. And we always get some nugget of wisdom or pile of nuggets of wisdom when you talk. But before we fire these microphones up, I want to go back to this conversation that we were starting to have for the benefit of our listeners. Just very quickly, though, for those who don't know John Robinson, he's from Creston, Iowa. He's the favorite son of Creston, Iowa, but he's a Kansas City Chiefs fan, the biggest one, arguably. That's right. And also, arguably, the most recorded drummer in the history of recording and drums. Having played on such seminal records as Off the Wall and Thriller and a lot of Quincy Jones productions, songs like We Are the World. And I do this intro to also say that because, John, every time that we've talked and had you on the show, I give you an intro, but I've never said that my wife was deeply affected by the Wilson Phillips album.
Oh, well,
and the grooves that you provided on that album were, absolutely monumental.
Well, she's got great taste, and those girls sing their butts off, and there was great production there and great songwriting. So, at the time, I didn't think much of it. And then, as time settled and you keep looking at decades later, these songs still hold up. So, and there were some great musicians on those records, like Mike Landau and Steubenhaus, and it was just fantastic. Yeah.
Abe Laboriel, I think, was on that record.
Abe
also?
Sr. was on there. That's right.
Yeah. Oh, Abe Sr., we have to say, yes.
Yeah, we got to.
So, what we were talking about was I asked you before we fired the camera up, hey, man, can I book a lesson the next time I'm down there? And you said something along the lines of all of us drummers have the same problem.
That's true.
Or the same group of problems. What would you say those are?
Well, besides me joking and saying Fridays we're not working on Fridays. No, I'm kidding. I'm not working on a Friday, thank God. Even though after I hang up with you, I will be assembling more data for film composing. So I've kind of switched gears a little bit. But all of us drummers, I think, even from the inception of, we're learning how to drum. What's our purpose of drumming? What are we? Are we drum soloists like Buddy Rich? And, and unfortunately, and even sadly, there was only one Buddy Rich. Yeah. And people that try to emulate or go, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going to go. Well, I'll be honest. Nobody gives a shit about drum solos. They just don't really care. I mean, all right, everybody's going to play the same shit, and you're going to play a whole bunch of different versions of it, and you're going to play it from the way your brain interprets it. Well, that's cool. But me personally, can only take a little bit of it. So what do you do as a drummer, and what is a drummer's role? And a drummer's role is timekeeper, to make people get their asses off the floor, off their chair and get on the floor and move. And that's even if it's a slow ballad or something, or even in my parents' day, which, was a swing tune, which actually brought a male and a female together and they would dance, which kind of led into the word what swing was and things like that. So basically all of us have a problem. And, it's where's the downbeat? Is the downbeat where you say it is, which in reality, from a drummer's perspective, yes, that's where it should be. It should be where you lay it down. Then everybody else around you should follow that. Now, if you have a kind of a problem with rushing, then that's a whole nother story, and we'd have to work on that, or you would have to work on that. But it's basically, if you can dance, if you can move back and forth in our North American vibe here, I guess we got to include the Beatles, don't we? Shit. All right. That band will never get anywhere, and they have absolutely no publicity. I'm shocked. But if we follow that train of thought, which is, we're here to be a timekeeper, we're here to, instigate a groove, and then make people move and dance or be moved from it, then you're doing your job.
Okay. That does not dissuade me from wanting to put your ears on my playing to pick it apart and let me know where I can, tune up the subtleties.
Okay, you got it.
All right, we're going to do that. Also joining us today is Sage Logan. She just dropped her single today, and we just want to highlight that as well because we're very, very proud of this song that she's written and recorded. It's a great song. She's a terrific artist. We're getting on this train early because we know she's going to be a big, big star.
That's great.
Yeah. And we still want her to answer our texts when her career is enormous. So tell us about dropping the single today, Sage. What should people expect? Where can they get it? What streaming platforms are you on, etc.?
Yeah, it's out on all streaming platforms under my name, Sage Logan. The song is called Contemplating Getting Over You, and it dropped yesterday at midnight, and it's been amazing. I've just been so overwhelmed with so much support, and I'm so grateful to everyone who has listened to it and all the support I've gotten.
That's terrific.
Great.
So we are in the presence of a guy who has played on a zillion records that we know and love and that have made us dance. Yeah. What, Sage, do you want to learn from the great John Robinson?
Oh my God, teach me everything.
Well, where were you 25 years ago? No, I'm kidding.
I wasn't born yet.
So, hey, what am I supposed to say?
That's right.
Actually, there's still time. No, I'm kidding. All right. I mean, listen, that's easy to know. You're not that far away. You're not just going to stop after this first single. I don't know how many songs are in, prep mode or done or mixed or mastered or what's your direction in 9 months from now. I mean, you might be okay. Yeah, I am over this guy because I'm contemplating that. And now I'm thinking about writing this some piece, I don't know, about art or, something in Paris or hopefully Putin slips and falls and breaks his fucking head. Write a song like that. I don't know.
But there's a chorus for you.
Listen, everybody, and we'll all clap on 1 and 3.
That's right. Says the guy from Creston, Iowa.
Shit, I had to teach them, and they all clap on 2 and 4 now.
Now, all right, that's good work. That's solid humanitarian work right there.
Sage, whatever you want.
Okay, cool.
Sage, you are now the torchbearer. Can you make the world clap on 2 and 4, please?
I will try so hard.
All right. That's all we can ask of you, is
cool.
that you give that effort. What do you think about, when you look back on your influences, Sage, where would you say your influences are musically and then vocally? Let's separate those two things.
I love that you separated that. I always do that as well. Well, I've been raised listening to like the Beatles and the Beach Boys and Frank Sinatra and Ella Fitzgerald. So I really, really love like jazz music and that kind of like music. That's like my core. But I think growing up, the first genre that I found on my own was R&B. So that is kind of like also equally my heart. So vocally, I would have to go with R&B artists like Snow Allegra, Sabrina Claudio, which are like all newer artists in the R&B field. And then instrumentally, I weirdly would have to go with like Frank Sinatra and Ella Fitzgerald and that whole like, because that music just takes you somewhere. Like it makes you just feel something that's so beautiful that can definitely get lost in today's music.
Yes.
When you encounter an artist who gives answers like this, John, what are you thinking in terms of what direction she's headed?
Well, I need to hear her, obviously, but I can obviously tell by her genre that she's had good upbringing and she's also got a brain. I've got 3 boys, and all 3 of them have a whole different train of musicality. And it's really good from a female's perspective to be able to have the entire gambit, or is that the right word? I think so. The whole surroundings of everything. Where you popped into Ella. Ella, was what known as Miss Melody or something. Mm-hmm. She was like the one, And
She's
you know,
phenomenal.
yes, and if you listen to, I mean, there's another one, Sarah Vaughan. If you want to kind of when Sarah at her peak was, to me, unstoppable. And and those girls busted their asses, with racial unequal quality, and still made it through the white man's world, and progressed, and actually changed the way white people actually heard this shit and loved it, and actually put them on the map, and it was fantastic. And then going to the Frank thing, and what do they say? There's 8 degrees of separation, and Frank hiring my mentor in '66, Quincy Jones, because he needed it done right. So he hired the Basie Band, which was probably the most swinging band of all our bands, and we could debate that for years. But with that whole thing and how that's led into the way today's times feel, and I mean, it's good that you've got that R&B sense, and I mean, obviously Aretha set the bar, and then my partner Shaka set the bar, and then Whitney, in her clean, beautiful voice, who, by the way, sang a bit pitchy, I'll be honest, but I'm not taking anything away from her. I mean, I'm talking real time shit, and there was no Melodyne in those days, and those 3 girls are really just inspirational. I know Snow. You know of her.
Oh my gosh, she's my number one.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good for you.
I think she just does it beautifully.
Yeah.
Well, are we going to be able to hear this?
Yeah, you know what? Let me see. I've tried this the other day when we had her on, but let me see if this thing will play. Stand by. Here we go.
Wait for
Contemplating getting over you. I know it's the right thing to do, but it just seems so useless because I love you. Now I'm reminiscing, though I know you're bad, but you're so familiar, 'cause toxic is all I've ever had. I hate how you go with that fragile ego, and I hate all your insults and insecure jokes. I hate that you still think I care. Well, maybe I do. Somebody help me get over you. Contemplating moving on even after all this time apart. Somehow you still have a reign over my heart, and I want it to stop. I know there's someone better, I know there's something healthier for me, baby. But you know that I always come back, 'cause toxic is all.
Oh my God!
This is a sample.
God, that was cut off just like one of my marriages. Just like that. Just cut that fucking thing off. Very interesting, Sage, how
Thank you.
this was started as a shuffle, and then in its bold portion, the chorus, it goes to a halftime straight groove. In the older days, and I say that maybe the 80s, we couldn't get away with shuffles. They didn't want anything to do with shuffles. DJs said no. And
terrible judgment.
And today, no, it's perfect. I love this. This is great. You sound great. The arrangement is great. The programming is great. I liked, and you're doing all your BVs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And had you been doing that since you were, junior high-ish, high school?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I love the dynamics too. And the thing that you mentioned, John, about the Basie Orchestra and how that affects pop music now and how that influence has rolled in is really evident there with just how hard Sage swings.
Big time. Oh, you can hear it. I mean, you sound like a sax section, which is which is the key.
That's
You know,
awesome.
and you know, there's this LA montage, or that's not right word. This attitude of when these guys play together, they're playing behind the groove, but they're not dragging.
Uh-huh.
So, and you've got that already built in naturally. So it's fantastic.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's a hell of a song. I love that you dig it. I think the best part of the song too, you don't even sing, you just whisper that "I love you" part because that gets your attention. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Really, really clever.
It was
Yeah,
actually intentional that I whispered that part because it's like I can't admit it to myself, so I'm like whispering it because
Right.
I don't even want to admit it. And then a few seconds later in the song, I scream a different part and like stacked layers of me yelling, saying like, I hate that you still think I care. So that was super cool. And like the contradiction between the whisper and the scream, like only a couple seconds apart. And that's
Interesting.
just goes to the whole premise of like, I'm contemplating what I'm figuring out and I still haven't figured it out yet. And I'm going back and forth. So that's
Well,
the background for the lyrics.
and ironically, that's life. Ah, but,
It's pretty amazing that your deliberation of the construction of the song goes to that level, because those are things that we don't pick up on those nuances necessarily unless we really, really dig into them, but they sink. You're going to land people. They're not going to know why.
Mhm.
Right.
And it's because of stuff like that.
That's right. That's right. I mean, you've made an advanced. This is not a simpleton, stupid thing. This has got some advance all over it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's
Maybe
we'll
that's
have
from
to
a guy
do
that's from a guy who spent a lot of time in the studio with Quincy Jones.
Eesh.
Wow.
A lot.
Wow.
Yeah, I've seen every aspect of that gentleman, so it's all good.
I want to ask a question. Since we're talking about Quincy and Count Basie, we had a guy named Sammy Nest. Maybe you're familiar with him, JR.
Via reading hundreds of charts. Yes.
Oh my God.
Even back to junior high.
Yeah, right. And he's taught a lot of people how to play music. He's written a lot of music for people who play music in LA. He's passed, but he was almost 100 years old when he passed. That means his roots reach back to the very beginning. When a trombone was a soloing lead band instrument. I mean,
That's right.
He's older than the damn electric guitar. And so these things that Sage,
well, except for Keith Richards.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Sorry.
But I guess the point I'm making here is when you reference Frank and you reference Count Basie, and all of a sudden Sammy Nest goes in there, you're talking people that go back to the very beginnings, or one or two generations back from the very, very beginnings of modern music. I mean, the guys out in New Orleans who invented blues and jazz and all that, they're doing that in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And Sammy's born 15 years later. That's crazy.
Right. That's right. I mean, that's fantastic. And, he was a legend. There's several of those, well, not many left. And I actually just, a selfless plug, but I was just in a film as myself with the story of, who had the Happy Days theme, Killing Me Softly, Charlie Fox. And Charlie Fox was this Jewish dude from the Bronx who loved to play piano in salsa bands, but they wouldn't let them play, so they would change their names to Hispanic names. And so they could all play with Tito Puente and all these famous old cats. Well, we've just finished a documentary film about Charlie Fox, and I did not know he's the same thing as Sal or Henry Mancini, where he's won these Grammys and Emmys, and he put Roberta Flack on the map, and it's just like, but he wrote Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley, and I asked him a question of, was it, did you lower yourself when you wrote these simple melodies? And he goes, no, it was just a period of time when people were contributing to the music business, and he didn't consider it a step below, or golly, if I've written this thing so advanced, I have to compete with myself. And you don't do that. your whole career is built on variety.
Wow. Interesting. Your career certainly has been built on variety, having run the gamut from, I mean, most of our viewers are going to know these things, but you played on David Lee Roth's what was that? Crazy from the Heat,
Crazy from
the
the Heat.
EP. That when he was just starting to push away from yes, you broke Van Halen up. You're the Yoko Ono of Van Halen. Well, between that and all of the great dance records that we know you on, and then I was talking to my dad.
Oh boy!
And he said, "Hey, I noticed you didn't have John Robinson on again." And I said, "Yeah, that's always a highlight." And he said, I saw this thing that he did with Nathan East, and there's the two of them playing behind Dick Van Dyke.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Do you remember this thing? And
yeah.
I thought, wow, how long ago was that? And he said, not that long ago.
It was about 4 or 5 years ago. It was for a movie Carl Reiner did. When I'm starting working with this film director named Danny Gold, and he's kind of taken me under his wing. And now I'm doing music for film, which is a whole nother ballgame. But we were in that film, and it was put together where Dick and his younger wife still, Dick's got to be almost 97, I think, 98.
Yeah.
This was a while ago, so I think it was 92. We did Young at Heart, and he'd come out and do some dancing and swing, and she was a novice, but she came off pretty good. But it was so much fun playing with him and his stories. And there's another one who is a living legend that seems to just keep going. And we asked him what the key was with him, and he said, "Just keep moving. Just keep moving. Do whatever it takes."
Good advice. But going to the variety of all that you've played, when you hear somebody like Sage, who's launching her career really and coming out of the gates swinging hard, what do you think about where she's going to find variety?
Well, she's obviously a very beautiful woman, so she's got that going for her. Whomever is pulling her strings and pulling her along has to make sure that they don't try to oversell her to compete with all this other bullshit that's out there. And I guess I'm using femininity as that. You need to find the right moment to capture your audience using that. And I think one aspect is looking at a career. Do you want to throw it up against the wall and just see if it sticks and move on? Or do you really want to build a 40 or so year career? Obviously with female singers, and I've worked with them all, it's harder for them, once they get into their 60s to keep it rolling, and I would probably attest about maybe a Madonna is some, stop the hot grandma look. It just doesn't work anymore. So, but in your case, just pay attention, even though there's a lot of bullshit going on in those meetings. There's, it's just all bullshit. It's all numbers. But, when they start getting into video, make sure you have control and make sure you know what they're trying to sell, and just you stay in control. That's all.
It's great.
Yeah. What do you say, Sage? How much of that have you concentrated on so far, or is that even in your windshield right now?
Totally. In terms of having a career with longevity, that's definitely what I strive for and what I am working towards, and the lens that I look at everything through now. Even though I am only posting videos or music to a very short and small amount of group right now, I am looking at it being like, well, one day I know there's going to be millions of people watching this. So everything that I do, I want to do wisely and put my best foot forward. And in terms of being in control, I am a control freak when it comes to my music. And when it comes to my vision, it was said last time that I was on the show, I am the brand, I'm the business. It is me when I step outside. paparazzi sees me and I say something, that's representing on my brand, on my music, on everything else. So I want to be in control of anything that goes out in terms of my name.
Excellent.
The visuals behind music videos, the lyrics behind songs, I don't let anyone else write for me. And where my music goes, where my career goes, everything like that. So that was all amazing advice and stuff that I've definitely put a lot of thought into.
And you eventually may want to co-write, because if you look at the history of the business, people like Burt Bacharach, for example, one of the greatest writers of all time, still wasn't a adequate lyricist. And so he would always reach out to Hal David and then later to Carol Bayers Sager and say, I have this heart and I have this idea, but I can only voice it this way on a piano. So you may actually have that same concept, and don't be afraid of that. Just, choose wisely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if Elton Johnson's knocking and it's like, hey, I'm doing another album of working with young artists, you just say yes to that because it's the boss. He's calling up. And, Charlie Puth, whoever it's going to be, all these guys have done work with him recently. Man, it's great for Elton. It's great for them.
Right. Well, shoot, I want to work with you.
I want to work with you.
Well,
okay.
That, you know what? Let those two guys they'll put us together on an email, and we can
Perfect.
We can start a collab. Do you run your own studio and stuff?
I go through my producer Cole, who has his own studio.
Okay, and he's down there.
Mm-hmm. He's in LA.
Oh, is he a Pro Tools guy?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Look at that.
See,
makes it
it's all coming together.
One of the things we talked about earlier this week, we had her on with CC Carter and Matt Hoy. Matt Hoy broke away from UB40. Now he does his own single store. And these guys are in genre with her. And they were talking about specifically the business part of it that you were talking about, not just brand, but you have to create products and you decide what you're going to do and how to run your business, because it's not like it used to be. So talk a little bit about the business side, because you're doing the same thing. Like, you're now doing movies, you're evolving as a musician. Talk about that aspect of running your own business.
I don't know how many more hit records I can play on. That one of the last ones was Gaga. It's called Stupid Love. And in reality, it was a stupid fucking song. And they lined me up like long story. We went to, and I was sick, and it was right beginning of COVID, and I didn't have COVID. And we went to the studio where we had cut Rock With You, which was Westlake B in Hollywood. They wanted you were in there. You're going to do the same thing. I brought in the set. I go, I know exactly. I haven't even heard the song, and I knew exactly what they were going to do. I knew exactly what it was going to, and it sure enough was. And it became a number one record, and, she's moved on. But there's another thing. I've besides doing film, I joined a company called Trubify, and it's kind of the anti-YouTube, and it's still in development. However, we are launched. So you can join Trubify, and as an artist, you can get paid per how many plays you get. And it's actually, the money actually is better than some of this other BS that's out. So every Thursday, I'll have a signature groove day at 3 p.m. Pacific time. And I'll have something I've played for or play it over. And I sometimes hide if there's a vocal, I'll mask it or take it out if it's a famous person. Because, it's mostly drum demonstration stuff. So, you can join Trubify, you'll get a notice, and it'll be called Signature Groove with JR, and I'll be doing all this other stuff. And it's cool. It's another platform for us to at least control our own destiny. And, I'm actually now putting together an actual organ trio. When's the last time you guys have gone to the store and bought a Jimmy Smith record? All right, so I've got a guy in Omaha, because I'm from near there, named Mitch Town, and we've got a new guitar player. So we're negotiating, actually doing a trio record with a guitar, and he kicks pedals, something totally different. Then I have another thing called the J.R. Robinson Experience, which we're working on touring. My manager, Ryan Sullivan, is setting that up. We've already done 2 shows sold out, and it's basically me doing all these major hits. So I've got a female singer named Allison Nash, and it's just a great band. And so that's actually, you know how GAD booked everywhere now. Mine would be more, I guess, concentrated on, you know, not the baked potato. You know, more of an elite, smaller crowd that loves, you know, the hits All Night Long and Higher Love and Ain't Nobody and Rock With You and Don't Stop, and so that's something that we're selling also. And then the new film, I might as well plug it, is on HBO. It's called The Super Bob Einstein Story. It was about Super Dave.
Oh, wow. I love Bob Einstein.
And it's probably more of a guy thing than a girl thing, but it was really fun. I got to do about half the cues in the film, and it was good. And there's a whole lot of famous people in the movie, and it airs on HBO. So
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's neat that you're getting into that kind of stuff, especially, you know, music for film, because I'd like to see a comfortable retirement for you at some point long in the distant future when, you know, you decide to hang the sticks up. The
I will never do
opportunity
that.
for that. Okay, good. That's
No.
good for me.
Yeah, I
appreciate
can't.
that.
I always got to play.
But you know, at some point, I would love for your sensibilities to be applied to what we watch, because, you know, let's face it, drummers are the master of feel. And when you talk about putting music behind a visual anything, it's really, you want to get out of the way of the images. And so the only thing that you have there to influence is feel. Wouldn't you want to get the best guy who's the master of feel to do that for you?
Absolutely. I mean, I've got a lot of great friends like Matt Chamberlain, you know, all these other rock drummers and different cats, and everybody gets hired for a certain feel that they've outputted. You know, mine happens to be, I think, more aggressive and to the point and dance oriented and butt on. You know, other cats are a little more lackadaisical and flowing and let me light up and listen to that kind of a vibe. So, you know, everybody's got their own thing. But it's important for, I guess, all the drummers that are listening and singers to have your own style. Have your own style. You know, you can borrow from people, like I would borrow from Steve Gadd or Billy Cobham, and I'll admit it. But, you know, you don't steal.
Yeah.
There's something else that you do too, JR, that has nothing to do with any of that. So I had Dennis Kim on the show yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Dennis Kim, for anybody who doesn't know, he's the concertmaster for the Pacific Symphony. He plays the Stradivarius, so he's like the top of the food chain in terms
I've
of
worked with him.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where I'm going with this. We were talking about, like, you know, the diversity of things they do at the symphony. You know, a couple of weeks ago, they had Catherine Jenkins from Wales on there singing, and they're playing behind her. But you and David Foster and your crew have come and played also. And he said, you know, we were talking about that. He's like, you know, David's very professional. He's not there to chat and everything. And I'm like, well, JR is his drummer. And he's like, I love that guy. He wore a Chiefs hat. What a sweetheart of a guy. And then he loves you. So, like, you show up in a professional capacity, but you also have this persona that, I mean, I'd want to know that, like, someone met me and thought I was a great guy, like, and hear it from somebody else. But that's marketable because you're not hard to work with.
Well, and interesting, you're dealing with the symphony now, and you know, and whether it's Pacific Symphony or the LA Philharmonic, or, you know, these people are perfectionists, and they also, I think, isolate into an elitist stature automatically. And it's not, I don't know if that's fair or not to say, but I'm not at all insulting them. So when I got to play with those guys, some people see, oh my God, he's got a rock drum set. You know, and this could get really loud, you know. And I go, trust me, I know how to play pianissimo. You know, I know how to get really loud, and like we do Elton John's Rocket Man, we also do that live.
Wow.
Whenever the hell they get more funding for that, and that's very interesting. But those guys at the Pacific Symphony were really good. Oh my God, like really good players.
Yeah, that's a hot band. I mean, they do so much stuff. They're great. And anybody, I always say this, if there's a symphony or something great close by, go do it. It's $30 to get in that room. Come on, go see Symphony, Pops, whatever it is. There's incredible stuff being made.
I agree.
Kind of past the COVID thing. Get out and go support folks like JR and the incredible. Like, he's building dreams. He's like, this is what I want to do. This is a guy that's done everything, and you're like, this is what I'm doing live.
Well, I've never really had a successful polka band, so that's a future wish.
I have a tuba. I can play this. Bump, 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 bump.
See?
Bump, bump, bump.
Hey, what does this tell you if you have a nightmare and you find out that you're a tuba player? Now, that's happened to me.
Come on.
And I had all the fingerings right. What the fuck is that? That's some out shit. That's all.
Well, if anybody's just tuning in, I just want to go back to the fact about 6 or 7 minutes ago, you asked a question, and I want to answer that question. The question you asked was, how many more number one songs can I play on, for crying out loud? First, I want to say how many number one songs you have played on. I would venture a guess of probably 20.
Not counting country or foreign.
Okay, so we have to eliminate categories
or R&B
to boil down to
R&B.
20.
There's probably 50.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
Certain people don't
That's
count
fair.
R&B, so I don't know. It's a good between 20 and 50.
Yeah. So, and that's number one records. That's not top tens, because if you expand it to top tens, you go from somewhere between 20 and 50 to somewhere between 100 and 400.
All of us older, well, now we're older, we're seasoned. I call us seasoned players in LA, have an experience with the Billboard top hundreds. All of us have that. And there was a point where I had 4 out of the top 10 or 5 or 6
simultaneously.
It's obviously Michael, Lionel, maybe Diana, I don't know who else. And it was kind of like a cool feeling,
That is pretty cool. So to go to the answer that we're speculating, how many more number ones can you play? I'm going to say, Sage, you answer that question.
Yeah, you're
Play on all my number ones.
Consider it done.
There you go.
My producer's actually right here in the comments watching, so he agrees.
All right, Cole.
Is that Cole?
Yeah, that's Cole.
All right, Cole. All right, beautiful. Whatever you
also,
want.
Cole, fantastic job.
Yeah.
We love you, Cole. You
Yeah.
did a great job.
Hey, Jared, when you get with someone, younger like Sage, who's emerging, and Cole, they won't have as many number one songs across whatever chart you want. How much influence do you try to put on what they're creating? Because they also have that young mind and they know what's hip right now. How much can you push on that?
Well, and it's interesting, obviously we've worked with Celeste, in the past, and that's still actually out or floating in a good way. I'm not the guy that's going to go, well, I need to put a drum set on this track. No, I'm going to listen to it. For example, there was a great guy named Mick Gazowski. You guys know the engineer? He was Daft Punk. He was That's What Friends Are For. I've worked with him for 40 years, but he did the Daft Punk record, which is one of the top 5 sounding records of all time. And he called me during COVID, and he goes, he's got a Japanese boy band. And he goes, would you like to do it? I'm thinking, I go, all right, send me the files. So I listen, and I go, man, I don't hear drums on hardly any of this stuff. But I do hear, because I'm a keyboard player, but I do hear programming. So I program my ass off on this, and it's huge over there. So, J-pop. But if there's something that I feel, like, for example, on your single, if I had the opportunity, the way you programmed the shuffle drums with programming and have it compressed, you could easily have done that analog with muffled drums, no cymbals, and probably quantized it and used it more organically, and it would have been the same damn thing. There's and obviously the kids now know ways around doing things like that. So, but if there's some sort of a thing I would hear, including like, wow, you need horns here, or you need a string quartet here, or maybe you need to take everything out, and just have 4 voices here,
Hmm.
you know, down the line. So it showcases you or showcases the song.
I'll send you all my files from here on out. You're gonna wish you never
No,
sent
I know. I got a feeling you're not that much trouble. It's Cole I'm worried about.
Hey, Sage, I want to ask you a question. When
Yeah.
JR says maybe put horns in there, you know, we're just talking, you know, not specifically, but just figuratively. What does that say to you? Because I know that says something to John and I. You know, because we're from the era of Tower Power horn section, and we know horns, what they can do to a song. But what does it say to you when he says that?
Well, I am a sucker for like strings, like when strings are in songs, or it's just like a very horn-filled section. That is like something that just takes me to a different dimension, and I love. So when he said that, I resonated with it. I had to squeeze a little string section into the end of my new single because
You did.
a sucker for it, and like added it to verse 2 in the background. So pretty much within all my songs that I'm about to drop have touches of strings everywhere. It's like a necessity for me. But yeah, I mean, that was a great recommendation, and I love it. I'll put horns in all my songs.
Well, not necessarily, but
it's a joke. Yeah, I will.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to actually have horn players shackled. You know, I've got a metal cage door outside of my. I swear to God, I can show you. It's a metal cage that was in the house, and I go, I'm just going to shackle horn players to this and let them out. You know, they don't like me now, of course.
What is it though about horns, JR, that takes? Because I mean, you know, I don't want to say the era of horns is over because it never will be, but it's a different era now, especially when it's. I believe, and this is just Pete talking. If you put a live horn player in the room, it does change how everybody responds to it, especially if it's a live performance.
Yeah, it's just the way the horn sounds compared to the way if there's not one of the, you know, everybody's playing electronically or the drummer's playing really lightly, and Sage is singing really softly. And all of a sudden, if you got a horn player, unless he's playing like flugel or a light trombone or maybe a light tenor, you know, I mean, and you do see people now mix and matching these things in their new concepts. But you're right; they tend to jump out. It's not Tower of Power anymore, you know, or it's not Jerry Hay and his section putting stuff on an MG record, you know.
I think music like now, current pop music right now is really taking it's going in the route of like rock and like 80s music again and straying away from like R&B strings, that type of music. That's my 2 cents from what I've seen released recently. It's very like 80s and rock.
Good. Well, that's, I mean, to me, you know, I grew up a long time ago, but 80s was kind of what paved the road, you know, and then when the 90s came, we were like going, what the hell happened, you know? and then everything was a free for all.
Well, this is exactly what CC and Matt were saying about, you know, R&B and they're wanting to get some of that back, you know, a little bit. One of the things Sage asked me before, and I'm not trying to put Sage on the spot, but just, you know, as a young artist, you're trying to fit into a genre that is traditionally, at least the way we look at it, a black genre, right? But it also is everybody's genre. So when you look at like, you know, sensibilities socially and everything, how does someone like her stand up? Like Matt Hoy sings, you know, reggae songs from a guy that wrote reggae songs. And he's like, it doesn't matter. But how do you tell that to a young person who sees so much of the cancel nature and the appropriation stuff that goes on?
Oh, I think that's going to Sage.
Is it going to me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, look, either way. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, yeah, me and Pete have talked about that before. R&B, I think like newer R&B artists, it's a very like African American dominant genre, which I love. Literally all my favorite artists are Black, and I just think they're phenomenal. Like one of my biggest inspirations too is Beyonce. I just think she's had like the most beautiful career and most beautiful voice and has held so much longevity throughout it. But with that being said, yeah, Pete and I talked about the fact that that's the genre that I want to go into, but there's very little like white representation or Puerto Rican, like, you know, Latin representation. But I'm still going to do it. That doesn't stop anyone to they'll do the genre they want. And I think like I want to do a bunch of different genres. You know, I don't just want to stick to one. But
well, and I think that brings up a point. Do you want to self-design your genre or just let it happen naturally? And I'm assuming the latter would be better, even though we all get called, oh, it's a Christmas record in July, you know, or that kind of crap. But you know, or we're at Capitol doing another big band record or something. You know, it's kind of molded. But you were saying I actually like West African music. And West African music still hasn't caught on in white America, and it's pop oriented. It's 1-4-5 changes. It's very much rock and roll changes. It's just got these really subversive, hypnotic grooves and melodies. And I cannot help but think that I mean, what was it? Cliff Ritchie? Am I dating myself here? Didn't he have a hit? He was a white dude, right?
I think that's
Cliff Ritchie. Wow.
Remember? Oh, you weren't even born yet, John. Jesus.
That's true.
But there was a concept of that, and you know, West African is just totally happening. But so say you're of Puerto Rican descent.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know? Because I work with a guy named Fernando Varela, who's one of our singers with David. He lives down in Orlando, and he's more of a pop tenor. And but I always wanted to go back to Puerto Rico, and especially after we helped support the country. Since the United States government sucks so bad, they don't want to help that out. But that's good to know. Now, can you sing in Spanish?
No.
Oh,
no.
Well, we have our work cut out for us.
No, I know a little bit of Spanish. I've actually never tried to sing in Spanish, but I would love to do that. Like in my career, that's definitely something that I would love to do.
You still have a grandma around?
I do not. Not on my Puerto Rican side. I do on my father's side.
Okay. Well, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
No.
But that's good to know that you've got those roots, and so that means you can dance.
I try.
Yeah, I bet you don't have to try very hard. So there you go.
Hey, JR, I want to make sure we don't go through the show without talking about Rufus and Chaka Khan and the fact that
God,
still are not in. And look, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a package. We know that they get to everybody eventually. And I love Cars, but if the Cars are in, why aren't you guys in?
Well, the Cars came later, and again, it's an all-white band. So let's look at it. Did I say anything other than just say a sentence? You can interpret that however you want. And I don't know who's on that board, but we should have been in 4 years ago. And we've been nominated 3 times, and she's been nominated 2 times. And I don't think that they're ever going to break us up. I think it would be just wrong to induct her without us, because she wasn't even the first singer. The first singer was Paulette McWilliams, and that was a band called Ask Rufus out of Chicago, and then that moved. Chaka used to come as a 15 and 16-year-old and learn all the parts, and Paulette moved to Los Angeles. Well, Chaka was still in Chicago with the all-white band playing these funky tunes, and then that just kind of led into the development of people going through it. And then I joined in '78, and I was the last person to ever join. And Hawk and Bobby and I are still incredibly tight, and with Chaka, but Chaka's kind of does her little fashion thing every day. We should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but the question is, does it matter? Does it really matter? I mean, it might matter to the fans. We should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But
it does matter. It does matter. If we're getting to acts that are just past the 25-year barrier that they set, we need to make sure we're getting more of the other bands back there that are. And again, I love the Cars. They have great tunes.
Right.
So do you. And then there's bands from the 80s that hey, when are Simple Minds going to go in? That's a band that's got track after track. And I'm not sure if the Smiths are in or not, but these are bands all throughout the 80s. Let's let the new guys get in, but let's get more of the old guys that have been left behind. So it does matter.
War.
And
War is still
War's
in the
not
Rock
in?
and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
Shit.
War. Yeah, there you go.
Original War too.
Yeah.
It's like holy shit. I mean, that was really, really good. And there was some other. Oh, Humble Pie's not in. You know, you think about that. I was like, I didn't even think Peter Frampton's in. I could be wrong.
That seems impossible.
Well, he should be in. I mean, you know, and I was there for a decade with him, and enjoyed every minute of it. But you know, it's just weird. And you know, it could be certain R&B. I mean, Otis Redding should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, is he? I don't know. I think so.
I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. He should
Marvin
be.
Gaye should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But, you know, maybe there's certain rap situations that shouldn't be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You know, I'm just speculating. And I know for a fact, I believe Iron Maiden basically told him to fuck off, if I'm not mistaken. And, you know.
That's rock and roll right there.
Right. They go, we don't want your award.
Yeah, Johnny Rotten called it a piss stain.
Did he? Well, there you go.
You know, but getting back to your comment though, John, about you know, crossing genre and Sage's look downfield to not be afraid of anything in terms of genre. I mean, you know, you're a great example just when you talk about Rufus and all of the grooves that we just associate with, you know, a certain time period and the soulfulness and the funk that exists there. And then your career specifically, I mean, you've played on a lot of different kinds of records, but you've played on some of the seminal, most funky grooves. So, you know, I think it's just gotten to the point now where if we're to look beyond, you know, race classifications for anything, the first place we should go is into the arts. And look at and embrace all of the people who have crossed cultural and racial barriers to embrace the art form and advance the art form, just like you have and just like Sage is gonna. Not a question, just a statement.
That is a brilliant statement. And how do I sign the dotted line there? I'm in. That's like, you know, if we could get that happening now in Eastern Europe. You know, and I'm sure that the Ukrainians would want to go, but you know, there's just some idiots trying to run the world, and you notice there's a resurgence of Everybody Wants to Rule the World again from what's the name of that band?
Another
Tears for Fears,
Tears for Fears. You know, all of a sudden I see that everywhere again.
Yep.
And I go, oh, I'd played that with them once or twice, and it was like, but. It's like a resurgence of these great songs that were written. And, you know, the arts, if the arts could just be as strong as the military, and it is, because you know what? Maybe what we should do is everybody boycott for a month or a week, not a day, enough that the world would not have music. I don't know how we can do it, but so if everybody is stopped contributing to music, even though we have our music, and then relaunched it like a week later, you know, what would happen to the world? You know, in other words, everything shuts down. You can't listen to your iPhone. You can't do anything. I don't know if it's a good idea.
See how much you miss it.
Shit, yeah.
And then how much you appreciate it when it comes back.
And then we control the world.
I like it. It's a great idea.
And Sage is our lead singer.
Oh, God.
You know, when you said we control the world, I thought, you know, that's a great place to end. But then you said Sage would be our lead singer. That's a great place to end. So our guests today have been John Robinson, the most recorded drummer in history, and dare I say, my favorite drummer. And Sage Logan, whose single dropped yesterday. I think we've made a musical match here today. I can't wait to hear how this progresses and what happens to Sage's music, John, with your influence and your contribution. I think we're in for something great. So I want to thank you both for coming on.
It's my honor. I look forward to a collaboration of any sort with you, Sage.
Me
And
too.
when we have these two gentlemen hook us up via email, and they've got all my numbers, and I'm up in Thousand Oaks, so we can start by a distance thing, and then maybe meet and have lunch, and then bring your lovely producer. and,
Cool.
and hey, please, you guys, tell the name of her single again, and where do we get it? Everywhere.
Everywhere. It's called Contemplating Getting Over You on all streaming platforms. You can also just look up Sage Logan and it should pop up.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, stand by, everybody.
Pete and
Hey,
John.
thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you so